Hey, this is Marcus Sheridan from the Sales Lion, and you are listening to the Dealer Playbook podcast.
You're dialed in to the Dealer Playbook podcast, where it's all about winning auto dealer strategies that deliver proven results. And now your hosts, Robert Weissman and Michael Cirillo.
Hey there, what is going on? You're listening to the Dealer Playbook podcast, session 49, where every single week we're sitting down with the who's who in and out of the automotive industry for you, today's automotive professionals. That was a mouthful, but nonetheless, my name is Michael Cirillo, and I'm joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Robert Weissman. What's going on?
Hey, man. What's up?
Yeah, not much. I'm just really thrilled to introduce our guest for today. Very insightful gentleman by the name of Marcus Sheridan. He's the founder and CEO of the Sales Lion. You definitely need to check him out. We'll link you to his website in the show notes. But first, before we jump into the show, I just want to let you know that Marcus has a over 200-page ebook that we're also going to link to in the show notes that just gives you a whole boatload of information that you can apply immediately to what you're doing online to attract high quality buyers. So stay tuned for that in the show notes over at
It's free too.
Yeah, www.thedealerplaybook.com/49. So be sure to check that out. Now, this was actually my first interaction with Marcus, and I got to tell you, I was super impressed. Robert, how did you get connected with him?
Well, I've been reading his blog and been aware of him for some time. And I actually have that ebook as well. And my boy Ryan that's where
Dealer
that helps
Talk.
with the Dealer Talk conference. He, knows that because Marcus is going to be speaking over there, he was nice enough to broker that together.
So shout out to Ryan Thompson.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Ryan. But yeah, this is a great session, man. This guy's definitely packing some heat, man. I think everybody's going to really like this. He has experience, he helps businesses in this digital age with a lot of, content marketing and different, strategies and innovative stuff. And he has experiences with, as you'll hear in this, with CarMax, and like he said, love them or hate them, they make it happen. So it's a very interesting session. It's going to resonate great with you today. So, Michael, if you got nothing else, man, I'm ready.
Let's roll. And we are here sitting down now with somebody you need to be listening to. You might have not have heard of him yet in the automotive industry. You may have, but that's all irrelevant, because what we're going to talk about today with Marcus Sheridan, founder of the Sales Lion, is going to blow your mind. That's right. He has some incredible information that we're going to really share with you that you can take your career in automotive sales or within the dealership to the next level. Marcus, thanks so much for being on the show with us today.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure. Excited to be here, and hopefully I can bring some value to your listening audience.
No, I'm sure there will be a load of value. In fact, we call them power bombs or nuggets. And just learning more about you and the experience you have, and the kind of the wide variety of information that you have, from content marketing help to even being involved with HubSpot consulting and all of the inbound marketing stuff. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. So just before we hopped into the call here, we were just talking briefly, and you had mentioned something that I want to just get more out of you about. You had mentioned that buying patterns have changed, and I feel like we talk a lot about that in the industry, especially in the automotive industry, especially with the internet. We always say, the internet's changed the way business happens. And we talk a lot about consumers' path to purchase and zero moment of truth and all of these sorts of things that indicate or kind of validate that the buying patterns have changed. But can you share a little bit more about that concept? Like, what do you mean by the buying patterns have changed, and what can those listening in do to combat that or leverage it?
So to me, this question is essential to everything that's happening. right now for businesses everywhere. Online, offline, it's the same principle. And we know, this is what we know. We know that today, and I didn't make this number up. This is the studies that have been done by all the really smart companies like Forrester and the Google Lords and whatnot.
Sure.
But what they've said is 70% of the buying decision today, on average, is made before someone actually talks to a salesperson. That's a profound number. I mean, if you think about it, and if somebody has said, say 10 years ago, what percentage of the buying decision was made before someone actually talked to a salesperson or talked to the company face-to-face 10 years ago, the number probably would have been about 20, 30%. You asked 5 years ago, it's probably about 40, 50%. Today, 70% of that buying decision is made before that first contact. You know, you mentioned that 0 moment of truth. So my question is this: where are we going to be in 5 years? Where are we going to be in 10 years? And the companies, certainly the car companies that adjust to this better than anyone else, they're going to be the most successful, which is why they better be the best teachers and communicators in their space, and they better do anything and everything that it takes to earn that person's trust long before they ever walk on the lot. Because the day of the sale being made, once they get to the lot, sure, that's a part of it, but no longer is that the most significant part of it. And this is not something that we can no longer just grit our teeth and say, I don't like how this has happened. We have to accept it. We have to embrace it. And now what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. And you know, and I love this because that's a lot of what we talk about, you know, so much, there's so much information online, and the access that we have to information this day and age is bar none more abundant than any other time in the history of the planet. And, you know, I think oftentimes when customers, and Robert, maybe you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like sometimes the perception is that when the customer shows up in the showroom, they haven't really, you know, it's kind of like the perception is we talk about how they've been doing research, but we still kind of treat them as if they haven't done any research.
Mm-hmm. Big time. Yep.
Customers ain't stupid. And everybody has to write that, like, you know, on the back of their hand and remind themselves that all day long. Because we've all got this, you know, the whole internet has changed. We can sense when somebody's being real with us and just totally, you know, yanking us around, and we don't like it. We don't like it. You know, it's fascinating to me. You look at the automobile industry, right? Okay. And here in the U.S., and I'm not sure how is the rest of the world, but in the U.S., I can tell you how oftentimes it works. The majority of major auto dealerships are built next to two things. Number one, they're built next to the highway. Number two, they're built next to other automobile dealerships. And of course, why was it done that way? Why was it designed that way? Number one, because they wanted the road traffic to see the dealership. Okay, they're going to pull in. Yeah, I get that. Number two, and this is where it gets very, very interesting, and this is where and I don't want to sit there and say everybody's totally screwed up, but nobody has really taken the time to look ahead and at least done it the right way. Because if you're still building an auto dealership next to three other automobile dealerships, you're not understanding today's consumer. Because the reason why you would do that is because you're saying to yourself, okay, so they're going to come to me in my Ford dealership, and then they're going to go to the Toyota dealership, and then they're going to go to the Chevrolet dealership, and wherever they feel like they're getting the best deal, well, that's who they're going to buy from. Mm-hmm. And that is a complete fallacy, because the way that it works so much of the time today, and some of that still exists, but the way that it works so much of the time today is what happens is you identify online the type of car that you want. After you look at all the features, after you look at all your options, you say, I absolutely want this particular car that's this particular model with this particular features. Then what you do is you choose the dealers you're going to see based on who has that particular model. Mm-hmm. And that's who you go to. And usually they're not within 5 miles of each other because they offer the exact same thing. And that's how the biggest way the automobile industry has changed, at least the new car space especially, has changed, is that right there. It's very, very profound.
Okay, so you're saying that, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that, you know, it's, you know, the auto industry has kind of trained the customer to react and shop almost the way that they have. I mean, who's not? If there's a different dealership right next door to where I'm already at, I mean, it makes it easier to be like, hey, why the hell not? Let me walk over here and see what these guys got to offer too.
Yes, but you see, you don't do that as much as you used to, Robert. Yeah. And that's where things have changed. Sure, it's nice to think that people still want to go from dealer to dealer to dealer. I don't want to do that. Mm-mm. I want to be in charge of the sales process. Period. This is why people stopped calling businesses, and because if you look at it, if we don't want to call a business to find out an answer to a question, we want to find the answer to said question through the information that the business gives us, specifically, mainly through the website. And if we don't receive that information, oftentimes no longer do we call to resolve the concern. We go elsewhere and we find someone that will resolve that particular concern. This is what so many are missing out on. I mean, I'm one of the industries that I'm really, really passionate is the used car space, right? And one of the companies that I've spent some time with is CarMax. Now, I'm assuming you guys have heard of CarMax, correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so CarMax, biggest used car dealer in North America. Some people may love them, some people may not like them, but you cannot argue with their success. And why have they been so very, very successful? I mean, let's analyze the situation. And I love asking this as a live poll with audiences. And so if you ask someone, when you hear the phrase used car sales, what's the emotion you experience? 100%. And this is every country that I've ever spoken at. 100% of the countries now. This is not a North American cultural thing. This is worldwide. People have a negative reaction to used car salesperson. Mm-hmm. And of course, the next question is, well, who taught you that? And the answer is, well, experience taught me that. So then the next question begs, okay, so what are the fears that you have when you're buying a used car? And there's 3 or 4 major fears that people have when they're buying a used car. The first one, and this is one that is so amazing, and so many dealerships still don't want to recognize this reality, is 99% of the world hates to haggle, period. They hate it. 1% of the world likes it. Those 1% of the people, they're weird. The rest of the people, they don't like it. That's called reality, okay? The other fear that people have, number 2, is buyer's remorse. That's the number 2 fear people have when buying a used car. Number 3 fear they have is that they're going to get a lemon or they're going to get somebody's problems. So you look at the way CarMax handled this situation, okay? 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, when their business is getting up and going, they say, you know what? Our industry is screwed up. Now, this is amazing in and of itself because most leaders, most people in any space never want to recognize the flaws of their industry because they want to hold on to the way that it's always been done. And so they said, okay, how are we going to do this differently? The first thing they did in their buying process for customers is they said, no haggling, period. They were the first major used car company in North America to do that. No haggling. Immediately, they eliminate the fear of the person that doesn't want to deal with a high-pressured salesperson. Mm-hmm. That was number 1. Second thing that they did, okay, they realized, wow, this more transparent model is working. We're getting a great response from customers. What do we do next? Well, what they did next was a 5-day money-back guarantee. They were one of the first major car companies to offer that. That was unheard of at the time. It was ridiculous. I mean, a 5-day money-back guarantee, which now gets rid of the fear of buyer's remorse. Third fear, of course, what we talked about, which was lemons or getting somebody's problem. If you go to a CarMax store and you walk in right now, the first thing that they say is, have you ever been here? You say, let's say you say no. They say, well, let me show you how our cars qualify to show on the lot. In other words, they want to show you that the majority of the cars that come through there, they never make it to the lot, which because of their advanced, I'm just putting this in quotes, their quote, advanced inspection system, CarMax quality certified, yada, yada, yada. And so now you've eliminated the fear of buying a lemon. And this is why CarMax has grown to be easily the most successful used car company right now in the world. It didn't happen by accident. It happened because they embraced reality. They said, what are the fears that our customers, our potential customers have? And this is the core, is it possible to get rid of those fears? And that's exactly what caused them to explode. And this is the same thing that anybody, any business, CarMax just happens to be the one that I'm talking about right now, they need to embrace that philosophy or they're going to be left behind.
You know, interesting about what you're saying here. I actually just read an article like 3 or 4 days ago about this exact topic. In fact, and this is actually from a Canadian news source, ctvnews.ca, but they did a survey. It was actually an American company, U.S. company that did the survey, Dasha, Petrenko, and actually Shutterstock.com. They polled, or they did a survey with 1,000 U.S. adults, and it had to do with people who had purchased a pre-owned car in the past 12 months. And the interesting thing here is it said that, you know, it kind of goes through and it says, what are some of the reasons why buying a used car is so stressful? And, you know, just like you said, it was the fears of inadequacy and of ending up with more or less than they bargained for. And there were some statistics here just to validate what you're saying. One of them is 52% of these adults who had purchased a used car say that the excitement of purchasing a new car, or the thought of purchasing a new car, quickly turned to fear of being taken advantage of. 24% of consumers said that they still felt excited once the deal was done, but 44% described themselves as feeling relieved, like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that's over with. And then the conclusion of the article is exactly what you said. It said, you know, they say here, just to quote the article, so what needs to change? 9 in 10 respondents said that they want a haggle-free experience, and most respondents said that a comprehensive vehicle inspection and guaranteed price matching as part of the service should be included in the process. Isn't that spectacular? It's exactly what you're talking about.
But it's so, if we analyze the situation, it's blatantly obvious. Every business has the moral obligation to say, really truthfully, what are the fears that somebody would have right now if they walk through our doors?
Yeah.
And then they need to figure out a way to address those and potentially eliminate those if it's at all possible. And if they do, they're going to lead their space into the information in the digital age. If they do not, they will be the next Kmart of their industry. And that's the choice everyone has to make.
So let's talk about, I mean, you've mentioned now, okay, it's the digital age. Kmart. K what? And by the way, Kmart's completely out of business where I live. So I don't know if they exist. I don't know if do they still exist? I don't know.
Yeah, point taken, right?
Yeah, do they? Okay, so
out there.
Well, I'm in Canada and they don't exist here anymore. So, now, let's talk about this, because you've mentioned the digital age. You've mentioned that there's a disconnect between, you know, what consumers feel or anticipate that the process should be like once they arrive at the dealership. But you also mentioned earlier that they're going online to search out, you know, answers to the questions that they have. In previous episodes of the show, we've talked about how pretty much every Google search is an implied question. People are looking for answers. You know, I talk about this all the time. If you're not providing the information, who is? And I like the you know, train of thought that you had mentioning how most dealerships' methodology is to build their stores next to highways and next to other dealerships because of the old buying patterns. What can dealerships do when it comes to online then to bridge this gap so that the message conveyed online translates through to the dealership or the showroom?
I think there's a couple of things, but every website should represent the soul of the company, the person, the people. It's no different than if I say Papa John's, you immediately see what in your head?
Pizza.
Or you see
Papa
John, right?
Yeah, and his car.
So you see one of the two, but that's what you think, right? That's what you think.
Yeah.
If I say Pizza Hut, you immediately see who?
Me on the toilet.
well, that. Yeah. So you don't see a person. You see a roof.
You're right.
You see something that does not have, quote, a soul. That is a problem. That is a branding issue.
Yeah.
And this is why Papa John's is dramatically more successful than Pizza, even though Pizza has the dollars of this little company called Pepsi behind it. You see what I'm saying?
And they've got the time, too. They've been in the game for a lot longer than Papa John's.
No doubt.
Right? Yeah.
No doubt.
Interesting.
No doubt. But they have no identity. You know, you need to, people say all the time, well, Marcus, you see, buying a car, a lot of that is a human-to-human experience. And, you know, as a salesperson, I help them feel comfortable and I address their concerns. My question is always, is it possible to achieve those same feelings and emotions from your website? Now, of course, if you're not a great teacher, if you don't embrace the power of video, if you don't show the faces of your employees on your website, you're not going to achieve these things. I mean, fact of the matter is, your customers should not be meeting your salespeople for the first time when they are on the car lot, if possible. In other words, they should have met them because they watched them in a video on the site.
Virtually met them.
That's right. They've already virtually established a relationship. And because of that, they walk onto the lot and they said, yeah, I saw a video with John the other day and he was comparing the Mustang and the Camaro. Is he here? Because I would love to look at the Mustangs, and I was hoping that he could walk me through the process like he did in the video. Now, that's powerful. That's amazing. And that's what happens. Doesn't matter the industry. That's what happens when salespeople get involved. So how do salespeople deal with the idea that 70% of the buying decision is made before the people talk to them? Well, they better hurry up and they better get on the front end of this conversation on the digital side of it, because otherwise their job is going to be rendered obsolete over the course of the next couple of decades. And again, I don't say that with a smile. I say that because it's one of those realities that we all have to swallow.
Yeah, like
and
it
then the
or
question
not,
becomes,
it's how it's going down.
That's exactly right, Robert. Like it or not, it's how it's going down. It's like saying, it's all the people that said, I don't need a website. And of course, now you essentially do not have a business if you don't have a website. The idea that you would not have a website is, it's like a capital crime. It's
laughable.
It's laughable,
yeah.
And nobody would even essentially, 99.999% of businesses would never even consider that as an option, which is not having a website. So this is where we're going to in every single space. And so we need to become more human on our website. We also need to turn our websites into the Wikipedia of what they are, right? The reason why I've managed to have so much success, whether it was when I owned my swimming pool company or whether it's with all the companies that we've worked with since then, we always have one goal, right? We obsess over the questions that customers and prospects are asking. Then we obsess over the way that we communicate the answers to those questions through text and video, right? Because we see ourselves as teachers. Here's what's fascinating to me, all right? Classic example. If I go online right now and I say Ford Mustang versus Chevy Camaro, which by the way is a very popular search, because if somebody says, I'm looking at these two sports cars, I just need to know the difference, that's a common search. It gets searched thousands and thousands of times a year. And if somebody's searching that, they're probably going to buy one of the two. They just need to figure out which one is better. What's crazy is Chevy's never written an article on that. Neither is Ford. They've never talked about that specifically. Yeah, that's ridiculous. It's an embarrassment on both of those brands.
No doubt. And it seems like you don't see now I'm not saying every dealership, because I have seen some people that have, and Michael, we've helped people do this exact thing, but then they're wondering why, Edmunds is getting all this shine and people are, going there and and Edmunds is able to sell third-party leads and things like that because Edmunds is providing those information. Edmunds, Motor Trends,
Robert, what you're talking about here is one of the greatest tragedies in the automobile industry, and that is the fact that third-party sites are dictating the education for an entire group of consumers, and they are literally impacting your dealership, my dealership, and the dealerships have allowed it to happen. The brands, the manufacturers have allowed it to happen. And I once got in a nice public debate with Ford Motor Company online. I wrote an article, I guess it was 4 or 5 years ago now. It said, "Hey, Ford, your blog sucks. What gives?" That's literally the title of the article. And my point was this: you can have 550,000 case studies on your site about how people love their Ford. But daggone it, if I got a question about a Ford and I want to compare it to another vehicle, specifically Chevy versus Camaro, or just a bunch of other questions, they weren't answering the questions. In other words, they didn't have a teacher's mentality. And you got to have a teacher's mentality. That is a crime. And what Ford told me at the time, because they responded, they said, well, we let third-party sites handle those things.
We let.
What? Are you kidding me? And then sometimes people say to me, well, Marcus, I mean, you know, people don't want to ask the source directly because they know it's going to be biased. That's crap too. And I'll tell you why it's crap. Because I guarantee you, every single Ford car salesperson has, when they've been in this process of selling a sports car, at one point in time, they've been asked, okay, so you're with me. If you look at the Camaro and you're looking at the Mustang, because I'm looking at the Camaro as well, which one would you choose? They have been asked that stinking question. If it's good enough for the salesperson on the lot, it sure as heck is good enough for your website.
Very,
in
very
fact,
good point.
times 1,000.
Very good point. And I think even at the least, even, you know, how they were leaving it up to those third parties. Well, at the minimum, you can curate that third party's content on yours and give your opinion. And that's an easy way to do something, is you just grab that article from Motor Trend and then kind of link to it in yours, but give your take on it, you know, and your opinion, or, hey, check out what they said about this, this, and this. And
Okay,
that's another easy
so
way.
here's the deal. Here's the deal. You can do that, but this is how I believe everything has to be done. And this is the part that most companies never get, okay? Where I built my brand was I started a swimming pool company in 2001 called River Pools, and things were going okay up until about 2008 when the market crashed. And when the market crashed, we were in huge trouble. In fact, every consultant I talked to said, you need to file bankruptcy. I had 20 employees at the time. I was going to lose my home. My two business partners were going to lose their home. It was the scariest, most stressful time of my life. That's when I really discovered or started learning about the internet, because I said, look, I need to attract more traffic, leads, and sales than I ever have. And I have way less potential customers than I ever did, because most people can't get a loan at this point. That's when we embraced this philosophy on the internet of they ask, you answer. That's when we said we're going to become the Wikipedia of fiberglass swimming pools. And that's when we said, you know what? If anybody has any question about fiberglass pools, good, bad, or ugly, we're going to address it more honestly and transparently than anyone in our space. Fast forward to today. It's the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. You know, during the summer, we get about 500,000 visitors a month to the site. And we dictate the education for an entire industries. And now we're becoming a fiberglass pool manufacturer simply because we have so much influence, and we have, you know, people that trust us all over the world. When it comes to fiberglass pools, it only makes sense that we become a manufacturer. The car space is very, very similar. Dealerships can do this as well. You know, these big automobile manufacturers, they have so much red tape, and they convince themselves that they can't talk about certain things, which is crazy, because, you know, they play by a different set of rules on their TV commercials. They talk about the competition all day long on TV commercials. When it comes to their own websites, they don't talk about them. But now here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Let's say hypothetically you're a Ford dealer and you need to compare, you write an article, Ford Mustang versus Chevy Camaro, or, you know, 2015 Ford Mustang versus Chevy Camaro, which is better. Okay. You write that article and you say something like this. You know, people come to us all the time at Lions Automotive and they ask us, so which one is better, the Ford Mustang or the Chevy Camaro? Well, here at Lions Automotive, we only sell the Ford Mustang, but we recognize the fact that the Ford Mustang might not be the best choice for you. What this article is going to do, it's going to extensively explain the pros and the cons of each one of these two vehicles. And by the end, you'll be able to decide which is the best choice for you. That's your opening paragraph. And then you actually answer it honestly. And you see, this is the thing that most dealerships can't do. Almost no salesperson could ever say, well, the truth is, this might not be the best choice for you. But you see, when you say that one little statement, everything changes.
Yeah, credibility factor, definitely.
Absolutely. This is exactly why CarMax has one commission number for every single unit that sells. Because what they want is they want their salespeople to give their best, whether the car costs $12,000, $25,000, or $55,000. It's the exact same commission. And so what that means is they're not needlessly upselling all the time, because they have the best interest of the consumer at heart. You see what I'm saying? And see, this is the mentality that people have to have if they want to be prepared for what's next.
Yep. Not only that, man. So super valuable information here. On top of that, though, I think Victor from Lions Automotive, if he's listening in, man, he better get on top of his website because it doesn't fit the bill with what you just talked about.
Is there a Lions Automotive out there?
I was looking it up. I'm like, hey, wait a second. I didn't know Marcus owned a dealership. And then I looked it up and boom, Victor, founder and CEO, big smile on his face, man. He's got to get on the bandwagon. You know what? And that's what we're talking about here, man. This is super valuable. I mean, this is stuff that Robert and I talk about all the time because it works, right? We say this all the time. The proof of ability is in results. How many more guests do we need to have on the show before those listening in catch on and understand that there's a massive opportunity for everybody, and that's having the transparency online and the courage to ask people, to answer people's questions and give them the information that they're looking for. Fast track to credibility and authority is to, and I mean the fundamentals of business is to find a need, fill said need, build credibility, build your business. And I mean, that's really what we're talking about. It might have happened in a variety of ways pre-internet, but the internet is such a powerful, resource and tool for dealerships to reach out to qualified buyers and talk to them about the things they care about.
So Michael, this is the thing I always say is if nobody's heard anything I've said this time during this last 30 minutes, hopefully they'll hear this one thing, and that is consumer ignorance is no longer a viable sales and marketing strategy.
Absolutely.
In other words, you can't sit there and rely on the fact that they won't go to that other dealer. They won't find out about that other option. They won't find out about that other price that's offered with that other dealership. You can't depend on consumer ignorance to help people make buying decisions these days. You have to embrace the reality that they already know. Whatever the thing is that you're hoping they don't know, they know it. And so if you do, though, accept that, now you can move forward with a communication style that is very, very different than it would have been otherwise.
Yeah. And it's more user-friendly, too. You know what I mean? Like, meaning customer friendly.
Dude, what we're talking about here is common sense.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is a principle that's been around since the beginning of time called do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This has been around since the beginning. You and I didn't make it up. The reason why the car industry developed a negative connotation is because they forgot about that principle. And certain brands within that space now are changing it. And I'm happy and thrilled to see it. There's still some holdouts. But if you look at it, what's interesting is the leaders of the previous generation are never the first ones to embrace the next. Henry Ford is the greatest example of this. He went from here to zero. I love Henry Ford, by the way. Love the man. And there's a lot of stuff that's been written about Henry Ford. But why did he go from here to zero? He started off as a hero because he was progressive in the way that he changed business and the way it had always been done. Mm-hmm. You know, he did the assembly line and he had all of these ideas that he implemented, but he got so set in his ways because of the success that he had. He said, we are not going to change. This goes back to the famous quote is you can have anyone you want as long as it's black, right? Well, because of that statement, you know, people celebrate that statement. There's nothing to celebrate about that statement because that's the reason why he went from hero to zero, because he didn't embrace what was next. And unfortunately, a lot of dealerships had so much success with the way that they sold before, the way that their dealership worked before, that they have been able to adjust with what has happened next. It is sad, but there's another group that is willing to adjust. They're making those changes. They're making those hard choices. And because of that, they're seeing the results that they need.
Mm. Awesome.
All right, man. Such powerful information. Tons of power bombs. Those of you listening in, there are plenty of takeaways. Hope you were taking notes. In the meantime, Marcus, before we wind this thing down, how can those listening in get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me on the Twitters at The Sales Lion, Lion. You can find me, my website is thesaleslion.com, and I will be in Canada speaking, and I'm excited to speak to automotive dealers up there, and that's going to be so much fun. And my main man Scott Stratton's going to be on stage with me too, and he is just one of the best.
That's that dealer talk, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's that dealer talk, and I can't wait to do that. And it's such an exciting industry. I love automobiles. I love selling vehicles. I love talking about selling vehicles. So the fact that I'm going to be there is exciting. But I certainly hope some of the ones that listen to this today will check out the sales line. There's a free ebook on there. It costs nothing. It's over 200 pages long. It's 200 pages of awesomeness that will certainly revolutionize your business if you apply what you see.
Awesome, yeah.
Marcus,
That'll all
thanks
be
so
in the
much
show
for
notes for you, man.
Yeah, that's going to all be in the show notes at www.thedealerplaybook.com. Marcus, thanks so much for being on the show with us today. We certainly appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And there it was. That was, again, Mr. Marcus Sheridan, founder of thesaleslion.com. Definitely encourage you to check out his blog. Again, it'll be linked into the show notes as we discussed. Michael, first time meeting him, how'd you like it?
You know what? I love the guy's passion. I love the, he knows what he's talking about, and that he's seen and helped others realize some incredible success doing the things that he's talked about. And you know what? Nearing the end of the show, the sit down that we had with him, he said something, and it stood out to me. And he said, all of this stuff is common sense. And I mean, that really is the gist of it. Everything that we're talking about is common sense. It's stuff that, it's not just theory. It's not just what, it's not pixie dust. It's not magic. It's just stuff that you have to understand and take action on. And I think, a lot of the times that's really what's missing is the whole take action thing. And I mean, at the end of the day, that concept, that we talk a lot about theory in the automotive industry. Well, the only thing that separates theory from success is execution. And so, I think that's my big thing for those of you listening in. Take what you've heard in this episode and put it to use, put it into action, because you're going to see some incredible things happen. It's the stuff that Robert and I are always talking about. So take Marcus's remarks as another layer of validation that this stuff works.
That's it, man. Let's do it. So I'm ready to wrap this up, man.
Yeah, so head on over to the show notes so you can get linked up with that free ebook of Marcus's. Again, over 200 pages. You can find that at www.thedealerplaybook.com/49. And as always, we'd love your feedback. I mean, it keeps rolling in from over 55 countries. We love the things that we're hearing. We love your feedback and appreciate it. If you have topic ideas or guest ideas, we would love to hear them. You can head over to www.thedealerplaybook.com. Hit our contact page, send us an email, and then lastly, we'd love to get a review from you on iTunes or Stitcher Radio. So we'll link up to iTunes and Stitcher Radio in the show notes, again, over at thedealerplaybook.com/49. Until next time, catch you later.